The following podcast is sponsored by Basico. At Basico, we understand your needs and pain points. Our expertise in CFO services, legal, finance IT, and people and payroll helps drive your business forward by inspiring change and challenging norms. We believe in deep explorative discussions and critical angles, the same spirit that fuels the Only Constant podcast hosted by our own Lasse Rindom. Discover more about Basico's vision and services at basico.dk. And if you like what you hear in this episode, please don't hesitate to share it with a friend. And now Lasse, take it away.
You are listening to The Only Constant, a podcast where we go beyond the usual discussions in technology and business and aim to explore more than explain. Join me for engaging discussions with a diverse range of global thought leaders as we seek to uncover new perspectives and insights in a free-flowing conversation. My guest today is Surojit Chatterjee, and I am your host, Lasse Rindom. Hi Surojit, and welcome to The Only Constant. I'm super happy that you're here with me today for this episode where we're going to talk a lot about AI agents, right?
Very excited to be here. Absolutely. That's what everybody is talking about.
The whole world is talking about it right now, but very few people actually, I think, have an idea about what it is, and people think an agent is what they did with RPA and whatnot, and maybe sometimes it is, but sometimes I think there's a lot more to it today when you're powering them with generative AI, and I hope we can dive a little bit more into that side of agentic, which I think is actually what the market fuss is all about, right?
Absolutely. See, what has started happening is, kind of agent washing. Everybody, whoever had whatever they had previously, they call it an agent now. Right?
Like we have 2 years ago where everything was AI, right? We have an algorithm in our software now. It is an AI software.
Exactly. To us, and to be honest, in the future, this distinction will probably go away. It's just like, today we don't think about what is we don't really know where your software is running, like cloud or on-prem or whatever, right? When we access a service, of course, some people need to know, but the users don't need to know.
Yeah, but that's the same with we've used AI tools in various forms, but we call them Google Maps, or we call them Google, or we call them whatever we call them, right? And I know there's a lot of Google products there, but you get my point. We call them, when it's a thing, it's a product. It's not called AI, right? And I think to some extent we're going to end up maybe the same place also with generative AI. But Surojit, you're the CEO of Ema, right? Who offers a strong agentic workflow engine for tailored agents. And I simply have to ask you for the most basic principles on how to make an AI agent work. What does it take?
Yeah. In our definition, an AI agent need to have a few attributes. It needs to be able to make independent decisions. So it needs to have reasoning ability. So it's not a rule-based system, if then else. It can have some rule-based component. It can have some deterministic component, but it needs to have some kind of non-determinism or reasoning ability to deal with ambiguity. Mm-hmm. Next thing is it should have short-term and long-term memory. So it should be able to carry a conversation or maintain context in a particular session. And it should be also able to take feedback, long-term feedback from humans or other agents, and remember those. And third thing is it should be able to take actions. Actions meaning use tools in the enterprise, connect to other applications, read and write from those applications, connect to any type of databases, data sources, structured and unstructured data, and so on. So those are the three things I think about: being able to reason, have memory and take feedback, and third is take actions.
And how long are we actually with these three things, right? Because I think, the short-term and long-term memory, short-term memory, yeah, okay, we sort of have that. That's, that's a context. Long-term memory is still, it must be, I know there are workarounds to it, but it is a difficult proposition still, isn't it?
It is. So all our agents, for example, take human feedback, and you can go and give them instructions which are long-term, which is basically long-term memory. Say, don't do this in the future, or always remember something, and it will do that. This is not like vanilla out of the box. This is software that we have written that enables agents to do all of these things, right? Usually, an interaction with an LLM is pretty stateless, right? You ask something, it gives a response. It's not remembering for the longer term what you want.
But I just think that sometimes some of the problems is also that when you give them long-term memory, then suddenly they remember things that becomes irrelevant in the future, and human would not think that way. So there's also this making some things permanent that were not supposed to be permanent. You also do that. So there's these weird things with it, right? Some things are supposed to be irrelevant and be forgotten for humans, right? How do we deal with that with agents?
Yeah. So some of it you actually do not want humans to forget. I mean, for example, sometimes I have to keep reminding our employees, hey, you have to submit like this we call snippets every week. There's 5 lines of what you did last week, what you plan to do next week, and that's a permanent instruction. I don't want you to forget. So us humans tend to sometimes forget things that we should not forget. The AI agents would not do that. At the same time, there is some benefit of forgetting things.
Yeah.
Because new information is available. We are very good at that, which is figuring out what's higher in priority, what we should remember and what we should not remember. Our brain does a very good job of that, actually, right? And that is a big area of research. Should or can AI do that too? Selectively remember things or adapt its memory. Should it in fact do that? For where the technology is today is we request the human managers of AI employees. So we are in the business of creating what we call AI employees. We have built a framework where you can create any type of AI employee. We have tens of pre-built AI employees in areas like customer support, employee experience, like the whole hire to retire process, and sales, and variety of other areas as well, like finance and insurance and healthcare, etc. But beyond the pre-built AI employees, our clients and our partners can also come and build new AI employees. For us, the AI employees are basically multi-agent applications. So they have, each one of them have tens of different agents working together to automate a business process or multiple business processes. Anyway, so that's a quick kind of introduction. For all of our AI employees, we have facility for humans to give short-term feedback, of course, and long-term feedback. And we recommend the human managers of AI employees to check in. You can check in once a month or once a quarter or once in 6 months. And this is a subject matter expert, right? Let's say customer support, the subject matter expert, reviewing, okay, how is the AI employee doing? Should we change any of the instruction, what you are talking about? Should you change what we told them 6 months back or 3 months back, whatever the frequency is, because the business has changed, right? And that's part of how you will run your business in the future, which is a combination of AI employees and human employees. That's what we believe. Now, should AI employees have more judgment to change the instructions on their own? See, there are pros and cons to that. And I think at this point, probably more con than pro. Before the technology gets developed more, particularly in enterprise, you kind of want your AI employees to be aligned with the with what the business is doing.
And
At least
purposefully, I used to call it purposefully inhibited, right? You want to make sure that they do things because they're inhibited because they're performing a role that they have to perform the right way, right?
Exactly. So while they could be given more independence, a lot of our customers would want some level of control, particularly in the enterprise context. But hey, you can also tell the employee, use your judgment or be more creative or something like that, and then it would, right?
I think that some of the, for instance, for just common chatbot use cases, right? So I've seen some setups where the chatbot they of course have a document library that they're trained on, or no, not trained on, but they're ragging on, right? But then they also rag on their own previous responses that were rated as good responses. But in some cases I've spoken to, that has meant that at some point they update the policies that they are supposed to reply on the first rag, right, on the documents. But then the chatbot keeps on replying based on, but this was a good answer 2 days ago. But now that good answer is, obsolete because we changed the policy. Right. And suddenly you can't control it anymore because it keeps on having, no, I think this is the better answer, right?
Right. Yeah, and the solution there is really it won't like go and automatically figure out, oh, you have a new policy. Just like no human employee can automatically figure out. Let's say the head of HR creates a policy. She or he has to send it out to people that then only people know there is a new policy. I think it's the same principles applied. You have to tell the AI employee, hey, here's a new policy. Send it to the employee or put it in the share drive.
And tell it to override all the previous responses that used an old reply.
Exactly. So that's all is required. We have a lot of our employee experience chatbots running in very scaled companies, and that's how they manage it.
And they clean up their own memory, or do you have to sort of look around and control it? Or I'm just asking, are we adding another layer of data cleanup we have to do?
There's no data cleanup. See, the memory in this case is just natural language instruction. So you'll go and override the instruction. You'll give new instruction saying, you can give a permanent instruction to like always use the latest policy. Right?
But what I'm getting at, Surojit, is the transparency here, right? Because I know I'm also asking you some unfair questions, okay? But that's also my point here. But the transparency. If I look into all the instructions it has, maybe I can get and export that. I don't know if I can, but I guess I could export the history of everything it remembers. But then I would get a list of things that are semantically ordered and not necessarily something I can sort easily in an Excel table, right? So how would I know, and how much time would it take for me to change this long-term memory or update it if something went wrong, right? That's one of the key considerations, I think, here. Yeah. Especially if you have 10 agents working, and then suddenly there could be big repercussions for something that goes wrong, right?
Yeah. So it's how you do change management in the organization anywhere today with humans, right? If you have a new policy today, let's say you have HR, like 100 people, 200 people HR team. You're going to debrief them. You're going to tell them, hey, here's a new vacation policy. So when somebody comes and asks you for, here is a new policy for taking sabbaticals or whatever it is, right? So you'll do the same thing, which is upload the new policy or point to the new policy and tell the AI employee, this new policy overrides all old policies. So that's basically it. It's incremental change management. You are not cleaning up any data. The old data can stay. You can just say, look, always the latest policy always overrides everything else, and it will work that way.
It makes me interested here, right, to see from your data at scale, maybe how many people are actually doing this every month, or every 2 months. Because the point is, if no one likes to do this. So I made the new policy. I just want my employees to listen to it, right, and just follow it. But having to do the change management is always the tedious part of it, right? And that's one of the criticisms for people of AI is that they criticize that humans will always take the lazy out, a lazy route, a lazy solution, right? So the lazy solution just say, oh, here's the policy, update yourself, and I trust you, whatever, go on, right? I don't want to spend time with you updating and talking to you about changing your instructions, right? So are people actually doing this? Are they doing these check-ins on the agents and their setups?
If I was not clear, the process of updating is no different than the process of how you will update other humans, which is you have to send the policy, right? If it's just in your head, they don't know. So you have to send an email saying, here is the new policy or something, post it.
Yeah, but in the human case, you'll have someone saying, "Oh, I don't know, I didn't know this," so they'll complain about not knowing, right? But here, the agent will not complain. You'll have to actively say. So the lazy human, the lazy manager, would be like, I don't know, whatever, right? Here's just send. My point is, do we have to spend the same process today on the agents that we do on the humans for change management or when we change policies or directions? And will people be doing that? That's my point. Are they doing these check-ins, right?
Yeah. My point is it's actually simpler, much simpler. So today with humans, if you have a 500 people organization, you will send an email. You will call an all hands. You will say it again and again. Look, humans are notoriously don't pay attention.
Send me the snippet. Send me the snippet. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you have to do this like 5 times before every human hears. With an AI employee running your HR, let's say policy assistant, all you will do is drop this new policy into the wherever this AI employee is accessing all the policy. It could be a shared drive, it could be a website, internal website, wherever it is. And it will just get to automatically know that and assume you have given an instruction, always take, newest policy overrides everything else. And that's it. It's actually much simpler, not harder.
Okay, and then we just need to, of course, test it again and see if it works.
Yeah, you have to just test it again, which you have to do with humans also. But you have to just ask the question, and which is, again, right in front of you. And it should work instantly. It's not taking hours in retraining. It will instantly get that and learn that and give you new answers.
So let's just move on to what are some of the common pitfalls as well here, Surojit, when we're working with these agents? What are some of the things? Because I see you also saying a lot is like the human is like humans, but there's also some benefits to them not being humans. So there must be also some downsides to them not being humans, right? There are some things that doesn't work out as easily, right?
Yeah, I think the common pitfall is, look, humans are extremely good at dealing with ambiguity, dealing with something that they have never seen before. And if you see all the advances in AI is trying to make AI like humans, like, if you think of a self-driving car, it's so hard. Why is it hard to drive a car? Because you don't know what will come in front of you, what situation will encounter. There's so many unknowns, but humans, even without seeing it ever before, can reason about it, right? So AI is getting better at reasoning. So when we see a new situation that we have not seen before, we can still deal with it using our brain, using our reasoning power, right? Part of the reasoning is using memory or patterns of similar situations. Part of it is using logic of, kind of logically deducing what could this mean, and so forth.
Yeah, but some of the problems with the AI, generative AI, is that when they meet something new, they're sort of just inferring between something that's sort of disparate domains in the model's brain, right? And that means that you don't get reproducibility until you have. My best example is actually this. Remember in 2023 or something, you started asking what are the common use cases for generative AI, and it didn't know what generative AI was, so it always just inferred to something else AI and just added something. This is not generative AI, but now it knows because now it's read something more of the internet, so now it knows that what generative AI is. Now it can actually give you a good answer. But before it has, and the way it approaches something new, it doesn't retrain as fast. That's maybe the problem, right?
And yes, that's the problem. And I think we are literally at the the very, very early stages of this technology. It's like internet in 1990s, right? Even though we are very excited about what this technology can do, all of us, and yes, indeed, we should be excited, but it is early days, right? In terms of you think where it does not work, sometimes AI will give answers very confidently. Like if you go to ChatGPT, it's always very confident.
I call it a mansplainer GPT sometimes.
Exactly. Right? So it's always very confident. And that's the problem. See, humans, when we don't know something, we are less confident, or we say, look, I don't know, but this is what I think. I think knowing what you don't know is a very tough thing. In fact, you think a lot of like, I always think of two things, like when evaluating humans also, like for a job or anything. Do they know what they don't know? Right?
Yes.
Very important.
Yes.
And second is, do they know when to ask for help? You will actually see more junior people in the job. They don't know when to ask for help. They will sometimes not ask for help and try to like pay stuck or do something for a long time. In fact, like, no, you should ask for help. It's fine. So the same thing with AI is teaching it when to ask for help, when to say, hey, I don't know, maybe I should ask another agent or another human.
Yeah.
Right. And those are the set of advances that we collectively need to make. For us, like we have spent a lot of time working on human in the loop for our AI employees. And there are two kind of modes. Every AI employee has configurability, and literally it says use judgment to ask for human help. And at that point, it was going to use judgment, or another configuration, always ask for human help. And when you just onboard a new human employee, you do the same thing. Say, no, always verify this with me before sending this to the CEO. Because you are a new intern. After 6 months, maybe I have more trust, and I have seen, oh, you're really good. It's okay. You don't need to ask for my approval and just send it to the whatever CEO, senior management, or the next level, or whatever it is, right? So building trust. And we have taken a lot of kind of patterns on how humans work with other humans, how teams work with teams. And I think this is really the area of work in the future, where how AI works with humans and how human and AI.
But here's maybe the question that makes that's I don't know. Now, so I'm testing you, okay? So you can always just say I don't know if you don't want to answer it the right way, right? But you said in the early stages of the technology, and a couple of episodes back, I spoke to Robert Fuchs, who is developing autonomous driving for JTech, working for Toyota as well. And we spoke at length about human in the loop, because he's been working with he's a PhD in it, and all. He's just working inside human in the loop for a critical process like driving, like forever. And he said, one of the first things we always do with automation and should do is to root out the human error. Right, and then you end up having the machine producing some things where the human root out the machine error, and then you go autonomous, right? So when we're in the early stages of the technology, as you just said, aren't we going too fast to autonomous, or to the machine producing? Isn't agents maybe too quick with jumping there? Shouldn't the agents just be surveilling us and helping us? Oh no, don't do that. That's a stupid idea. Rooting out our errors. Do you get my point? Maybe going the cautious way, root out the human error before we start generating more errors. Yeah. In many areas, that's true. For example, in customer support, we often start with agents just listening in to AI agents, AI employees listening into humans on the call, and giving feedback to humans, saying, "Hey, you didn't greet the customer correct way. You use these words that are banned or not supposed to be used," and so on. So giving humans feedback on what, how they should work, and then use the samples from the best humans to learn. The other challenge often is in a lot of areas that we are working on, the definition of what is correct is not obvious. Right? If you multiply two numbers, that's obvious. But if you're generating a document, is it, when it's bad, when it's kind of really good, but how good it is? Is it 100 out of 100? Is it 99 out of 100? It's a slightly subjective area, right? Same with, say, think about responses to customer support queries. Of course, there is clearly some are wrong responses and some are right responses, but can the response be better? Yeah, that's my point, right? But
Can
isn't
there-
that where we should start always, right? But I guess you're also starting out with companies where they start completely differently. They start by automating everything, right?
Yeah. I think that's our approach always is to work with humans first, not just okay. Here is a push button and it just automates everything. That's basically what RPAs kind of did. It's rule based and so on.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff we are automating often has subjectivity ingrained in it.
Because if you do the other thing, you end up with having only these use cases that are, low ambiguity, so it ends up being a task automation, just like RPA, right? So if you want to do the other things, you need to start from another place where you make it a co-pilot, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to use the word co-pilot because I think that minimizes it and it's very limited. To me, co-pilot is I'm writing a document. It helps me in some places and so on. Our AI employees do automate end-to-end processes, but it doesn't mean it can go in full auto mode, but it will. We always recommend to our customers that build trust first, right? Look at, ask it to ask you questions back, like human in the loop. So AI employee will pause and ask question back saying, am I doing it right? Or, can we approve this step?
So something that more, I'm sitting here trying to think of an analogy, right? But something that actually right now starts by helping you, and then it could also do actions on its own, like what is it, the thing Pinocchio has, right, on his shoulder, and telling him what he's not supposed to, and then it could also take actions later on its own, right? But that's also my point, let's scale it from this rooting out the human error, knowing the process, figuring out the ambiguity that way, and then maybe moving into autonomous. The thing I'm worried about is that there will be a knowledge loss in moving too fast into autonomous and skipping that step, because then suddenly you're just getting rid of employees and going autonomous. But there was some knowledge and some ambiguities there that we lose in that jump, right? Because we're not actually doing it the right way. And like Robert said on the podcast, right, which I think is a brilliant way of putting it.
Absolutely. But I'll add one more thing here, which is sometimes we are thinking humans are doing things right. And that's also not true. No. So we have seen it depends on which human you ask. So customer support, if you ask the subject matter expert, which is like head of the department, head of customer service, and so on, they will know what is right? Now, let's say you have 100,000 customer support agents and you have a running company for last 10, 15, 20 years. Are they doing things right? Turns out, no. Only top 10% of them are probably doing things really according to the SOP and so on. So humans often are not as good as we think they may be, just like even in driving. And this is what self-driving cars have faced for a long time. Humans are not that good drivers.
No, but here's the, and now I don't just want to quote Robert here, but what he also said was that, which makes sense, right? That when you have a human system, you'll have errors. Of course you will, just humans driving. But when you have an automated setup, you could also, scale the bug. You don't just scale the benefits, you also scale the bugs. And how are you working with that? And are you thinking about that, Surojit? So if someone makes a wrong instruction and it just goes on, what do we do? How should people avoid, like if a Tesla updates the wrong way and all the cars crash, right?
Yeah. And that's a great point, right? Because you can scale quickly anything right or anything wrong across everything. For us, it's it's not like maybe
like the Cloudflare, right? Was a good moment, right? Remember that one with the airports and all that last year?
Yeah, absolutely. What are the real use cases like this? We'll deploy AI employees. We'll have literally a round of kind of mock trial, right? Then sort of customer support queries. Let's say customer support, right? The AI employee will answer those answers or those resolution or how it will answer. It will explain, and not actually going to the real customer yet. Right? Some human is looking over the shoulder and saying, okay, that's good. Second step is AI employee answers and some human looks over and approves. Third step is, okay, full autonomous mode where I think, you can just send this to customer.
Yeah.
What our customers would also do is, okay, there are 5 sensitive topics. In those cases, always raise to humans, always pause and raise to humans. So turns out in most cases, particularly in areas we are working in, like in customer support, the CSAT score jumps 50% or more because humans are not very consistent.
No, but then the bad update comes in. Someone changes the instructions, right? And you don't go back to the first assisting humans and humans assisting robots and then full autonomous. You just update the autonomous setup, right? And that is the danger, isn't it?
No, so it depends on what process you set up to deploy changes, right?
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be changing the instructions in production. You should be changing it, doing the same thing, testing it, and then.
And then we're exactly back to then we're back to classic IT, right? And change management procedures, right? Isn't that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what what point we're trying to make here, but that's the change management you will do even with humans, right?
No, but I'm thinking what I'm trying to get at here is, and you think we already alluded to, but the simplicity, the power is big here, right? The power is extremely big for your agents. But I just want to make sure that people also understand that the simplicity of it is not. It's easy maybe to start off some things, but you have to make sure you have the right processes in place to update things and manage things. Also, the right data you give to it. So I think that the whole setup beneath it, what you're saying here makes it sound very much, for some people, will make it sound like an IT project, right, Surojit?
Yeah,
change
it does.
Management in production environments,
Yeah, look, I met a CEO recently, right? And he was like, "Okay, why don't you automate my entire customer support?" I'm like, "Great, we can do that." So we went there. I'm like, "Okay, so where are your SOPs, right? Where are your policies, and how do your humans do this job?" "Oh, we haven't written down anything, so they just know what to do."
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, "Look, AI is not clarified. It will not read your human's mind and try to glean what it's supposed to do. It can look at past tickets and make some judgments, but what we have seen is humans are not consistently right, like all humans. So we need to then know who are the right humans, who are the less right humans." So my point is, yes, that should be obvious. This system is not as magical as it may seem, right? It needs right data, right processes, right and right discipline. Get the most out of it. You can get a ton out of it if you do the right things, but it's not a magical button. Okay, hit this button and it will work.
No, because it's like there's two sides to this whole hype, right? Either so let's say this would just happen overnight; it will happen on its own to some extent. This is something that just it's easy, or everyone will have an agent in a moment, right? And then there's the other side saying that but you need to fix all your data and all your process. But I think I always say that you find your purpose, and then you figure out what data and what SOPs are relevant for that purpose, and then you fix those, and then you put it to an agent, and then but you have to do the things that are relevant, right? Relevance and purpose are key in everything we do with AI, right? Is that the same you're saying?
Absolutely. You have to be very intentional about it. Also, the metric, like some even large companies are now putting out their number of agents of 5,000 agents, 10,000 agents. That's completely irrelevant metric. Doesn't matter how many agents you have. I think the true metric is what ROI are you getting? What kind of accuracy your AI has, right? How many errors is it doing compared to your humans in the same roles? Those are the things you need to look at. And second is AI needs management, right? Just like humans need management.
Yeah, you've said that multiple times now.
Right. You can hire really great PhD students or even experienced people, but you cannot just unleash them without any management or any instruction or any guidance or any strategy, right? So same thing here. AI needs management. If you're changing things, you need to do it in the proper process. You can call it like IT, whatever, but that's the truth, right? It is a system, very powerful system, and it can, like you said, it can repeat mistakes at scale. It can also repeat,
benefits, obviously.
correct benefits or correct actions at scale. So you have to be careful about it when deploying and when managing and changing.
Also, just so we don't just reduce a human cost in this department that will end up maybe reducing the value of another department because they relied on the human. We could save a lot of if we're a consultancy. I work in a consultancy, so we could save a lot of people by just interacting with a robot directly to our customers instead. But we live so much of the relationships with our customers. The meeting them and drinking coffee relationships as well. So we'll end up automating our value proper way if we did that, but maybe but there could be a cost saving exercise in one department doing that. So there's this whole, I think people might struggle, that's one of the pitfalls I'm seeing at least, is that they might struggle to see that this is cross silo. AI agents are able to seamlessly work cross silo, but we are not very good typically at working cross silo. Humans have an ass in a seat somewhere in some department with some boss who has one KPI, right? Agents don't.
Right.
So I think that's also just one of the things I'm thinking a lot about. I also want to ask you, because now I touched a little bit on the whole data side, right? That you need to have clean data. So I want to ask you, startups versus enterprises, what you actually think here, is the $1 billion company everyone's been talking about. So are startups actually better suited for an AI agentic economy than old enterprises? Because I think, the enterprises typically have data. They might have an SOP, right? Startups don't. You said it before. But what do you actually think here? Because everyone's talking about, and the startups can just bam, boom. Yeah, but you also need to know what is value for a market that works, right?
Yeah. I think there are two different aspects of it. We primarily sell to large enterprises, right? Because that's where the ROI is, I believe, because large enterprises have a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of duplication of work, a lot of silos, and a lot of complexity in terms of thousands of like SaaS applications. Working.
Complexity needs tailored, right? That makes sense.
So that's where we believe our kind of opportunity is today. The other part of it is how do we build new companies with AI, and we are such a company, right? We started in 2023, incorporated in March of 23, came out of stealth in April of 24. So very new company. When you start a company at this era, you will do it very differently, right? For example, we did not hire anybody in HR because any HR question can be answered by our AI employee, right? So you start with thinking, what can AI do and where do you need humans in the first place, right? Now, what does that mean? It does mean that, look, when we do have HR, they will have a lot more time in actual complex issues rather than answering, 100 benefit questions every day, right? And it's the same with many other functions where whatever is automatable, we automate first. We always ask, can AI do that job, right, reasonably well? If it can, then let's hire humans for higher value-added parts of it. Now, can a single individual build $1 billion company? I think it is possible in the future. I think, you will see companies that are much more leaner than before. And I do think as larger companies also get more efficient, as overall, as we increase our productivity, as countries and economies, you will see humans doing a lot more entrepreneurial things, a lot more creativity, a lot more building new things. And if you just look back, that's true. That's what has happened, right? Technology has freed us up. to do a lot more, with a lot less number of people. I mean, if you just look at, I used to work at Google for a long time, right? If you look at like something like YouTube, right? There are literally millions of independent businesses or creators that are, maybe one or two people building content and making a living and so on. That was just not possible before.
We're not
right?
unemployed. That's for sure.
Right. And we will see a lot of that happening next 10, 20 years. And I am very positive, actually, very optimistic about the overall outcome for our society. There are a lot of pessimistic views. Okay, AI will make everybody kind of lose their jobs.
Yeah, but I think that's always been weird. They did the same with our PA, right, back in the day, and for multiple other technologies. But we always end up, creating more complexities to manage and other stuff we want to do. And if there's no one to buy what the robots produce, do you think there'll be any robots, right? But it's actually quite simple, right? I think people tend to think that robots will be on the demand side as well, right? And that's always got to be us. We have to be the ones buying stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's something weird going on there. But don't you also think that, and this is something I'm also thinking about, the companies, and especially large companies, also made out of culture, right, to some extent. And also when you have 5 HR employees, your HR function and way of working and messaging in HR is more resilient than if you have one, right, that leaves or has a change of heart or something happens at home. Don't you think that's also part of it sometimes? Or are we missing something here? Are we, if you have one person in every department, suddenly where's the company culture?
The new culture, new company, look, we are often looking at large companies and making some conclusions. If you're in a startup, right? If you start in a garage or in a basement, like our case, you start with 3 or 4 people, and you don't have the luxury to say, hey, let's hire an HR and a finance and this and that. You have single individuals wearing like 5 hats. We still have that, right? We have some people doing like 3 jobs. So the company culture is not necessarily what role they are in, right? It's more about what's the mission and vision of the company, how aligned they are, what are the shared values, and do they share value or not? In fact, I would say the opposite. I would say what happens in a larger company, silos get created in culture. Or HR team has a different culture than engineering team, than sales team, right? And you are surprised, is it the same company even? Right. In a startup, you won't see that, right? In a 50 people startup, 100 people startup, or 20 people startup, everybody it reads from the same page. Everybody is similarly motivated, and you will see similar culture. As companies get bigger, silos get created, departmental culture get created. They're notoriously, as bigger companies, departments fight with each other like they're enemies rather than collaborate with each other.
Yeah, but that's also sometimes part of that's true, but it's also sometimes part of this. There's the slowness sometimes, right? And that also means that you don't just revolutionize. It also means there's something stable and something customers can rely on. This is what the company does. There's some double forces at work here, right? There's the speed, but also stability that sort of tries. It's always been the thing in everything humans doing, right? We have speed and innovation trying to mess things up, and then you have stability of operations working on the other hand, right? And I think those two forces, that's also why I'm looking for the resilience in having, obviously for startup is a different thing, but when you're an enterprise, if you have 100 people in customer service today and you build an AI agent that can handle most of it, maybe you shouldn't just go to 2 people immediately. Maybe you should actually go to 70, 50, and so you don't lose that knowledge gap or figure a way that the culture will live with it. Do you get what I'm trying to get at here? The stability part of it, right, as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, for most customers we have, they don't just get rid of like 90% people right away, right? That's a lot of them are also growing. In fact, most enterprises will tell you they're actually short of people. They don't have a problem of too many people.
No.
If you look at healthcare, right, huge, shortage of skilled labor, of staff, right? When you bring in automation, first thing is that humans have a better life and they can do more value-added activities. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit.
It's okay.
So that's I think recommendation is exactly what you are saying. Not get rid of everybody on day one, but figure out how the same humans can be utilized better in other areas. Like we have one customer, large bank. They do a lot of lending. So what they found is, first they were growing 50% year on year. It's a large, online bank, one of the largest actually in India. They could not keep up with that growth with hiring enough customer support agents, right? So just impossible to hire and train people at that pace. So first thing with automation is, we don't have to go and keep hiring at that pace. We can actually use the same number of people to do a lot more work. Second is, we see a lot of these people are very well trained. They could do other things as well. They could, for example, do cross-selling, upselling, call the customer out, talk about their needs, and grow the business.
Touch stuff, yes.
Exactly. So I think we have to be, and most enterprises understand that, right? If you have trained someone on something and they have good context, you don't want to lose that individual quickly. You will find a way to repurpose that individual and see how that individual can contribute even more. So I think the first step is really seeing these productivity gains and seeing how employees have more fulfilling jobs, to be honest, right? So a lot of times employees are doing, okay, I'm half my day, I just copy paste from one spreadsheet to another. And then other half of my day, I do some creative work. I use my brain. We are saying, look, maybe 100% of the time you should use your brain, and employees will feel more satisfied, right, with their jobs. It's not like soul crushing. A lot of jobs are like, it's not like humans want to do that kind of role. I inherently believe, and if you look at how we have evolved, humans are problem solvers, right? From even when we were in caves and in jungle forests and early days, we were not taking a tree branch and putting it on the other side, right? That's not what we did. In fact, we solved more problems every hour than maybe we solve today. It's a survival thing, right? So humans are inherently problem solvers.
Also, Anna Tibelius on my podcast said that that's also the problem solving is not actually about overcoming. It's actually about being in that problem solving mode that we like.
Exactly.
It's not we as I said on that episode, we caught the mammoth. Oh yeah, but I'm a vegetarian. I don't even eat mammoth flesh. But it was a nice hunt. I love that, guys. To some extent, there's some truth about that, right? We're always in the process of overcoming, right?
Overcoming, exploring. See, if you look at humans do kind of inherently stupid thing. Okay, let's scale this crazy mountain. Not that we are going to find some food on top of the mountain, just for the fun of or exploring, right? Or let's navigate the seas, for like 6 months in the middle of storm to find land on the other side. Not necessarily that it will give us something immediately. We are explorers, we are problem solvers, we are curious, right? And I think all of that gets enhanced when technology automates things that are mundane, that are rote. And if you just look at industrial revolution, that's what happened, right? Again, a lot of people, 90% people were just farming, which is a slightly rote activity, right? There is some creativity also in farming, a lot of creativity, but a big part of it is also just rote activity, tilling the soil or planting something or harvesting. As you brought in machines, all these humans got free, and they could say, we could build more machines, we could build other things, we could do constructions, we could do art, and so on and so
but this
forth.
is also, this is. I think you're touching upon something that makes me think as well. Right? The core of this is so much productivity gain from just automating stuff and realizing that a lot of what we're doing is in digital tools, and AI has access to these tools because they can program. They have language to program. Basically, that's the basic principle of it, right? So they can sort of automate everything in that space, also with ambiguity or to a large degree, right? There's some that we talked about, the long-term memory, some stuff that might be difficult, right? But I think that, and you also mentioned YouTube, right? I think people are maybe scared of this, see AI as a challenge to overcome, right? Now we just talked about that as well, because they see them also generating art and pictures and YouTube videos or video videos, right, or whatever they're doing, right? And I think that's sort of. I'm super annoyed at all these weird sudden ChatGPT generated images on LinkedIn. I think it's super annoying, and they're everywhere, right? I'm also like, okay, I know Veo can make videos, but do you have something you want to tell me except that Veo can make images, videos? Is there another message to your video than the fact that Veo made it? Because please, okay, you're not a director, you didn't become Martin Scorsese or something just because you now can use Veo, right? But so my point is just is this making people maybe focused on the wrong side of AI, that is coming to take all our creativity, where I think it's coming to take all the mundane stuff, right? How do you actually feel about this? Is it a distraction?
Yeah. See, even in if I understand your question right, AI doing. We are fine with AI doing a lot of mundane stuff.
You can do the dishes, right? Please don't do my art, right?
Right. Don't do my art. My thinking is, even in art, right? AI should make an artist or a movie producer just a lot more creative and productive, right? You could create just like even in coding, coding is actually a creative activity, right? Writing software. Today, AI is writing software. I think of it this way, and I talk to our engineers. I do code myself as well. What it has given us is I can build a prototype really quickly. If I have an idea, I can see it. But is this the final product? No. But it tells me what the final product could be very, very quickly. It's just another tool. Just like we have modeling tools. Like imagine an architect. Imagine someone building the pyramids in Egypt, and they had the 3D rendering tools we have today. It doesn't take away building the accomplishment of building those pyramids, but if it's a tool. It's not like the 3D rendering is actually building the pyramids. You'd still need to apply yourself and so on. So I think properly you will see authentic content, more original content. You will see more creativity. I'll give you one more example, like the game of chess. And I actually play chess. I always used to play as a kid. And AI conquered that much before anything else, probably, right? But people said, oh, that's it. It's over. Nobody will play chess anymore, because any software today you can buy. You don't even need to buy. Free software will beat you in chess games, like even if you are a grandmaster or whatever, right? Nobody can compete. But has the game of chess kind of got wiped out? No. In fact, there are more people playing chess than ever in history. There's more excitement because humans are, when humans play with another human, their flaws create kind of uniqueness. We still want to watch humans play.
Yeah, the same with the weird thing about my kids, growing up in the digital age, suddenly they want to buy vinyls, right? I'm like, what are you doing, guys? But that's also a thing happening, right? This weird feeling of we want to listen to an album. We want to see the creativity of that. We don't just want to pick everything we want, right? But I think your chess example is quite nice. But I just think that I'm not even asking about, is this right or wrong? I'm just saying that to some extent, maybe the market would have been better off if we had just, the AI agents at first and then the creativity tools later on, because people get confused about it. People feel frightened for it, right? And but no one's really that scared of getting rid of the mundane tasks, right? Do you really think so? I don't think so.
Yeah, look, you can't manage creativity, or you can't manage innovation, or which way things will go, like technological breakthroughs. Right? You can't sequence them. I think what you will see is, whether it's writing, whether it's art, it will be human and AI working together. Like today, you can ask ChatGPT to write a good story, but is it that, can it win a Nobel Prize in literature? I don't know, actually, maybe in the future. But does it mean no human Nobel laureates will exist in the future? No, I think, it's a tool for authors to think more creatively and get some ideas.
The funny irony, I think, is that if you want to be good at prompting, right, you also need to understand language and semantics very good. You need to know the distance between concepts, right, semantically. And that means you need to read a lot, and you don't need to read a lot of complex literature as well, because if you're asking it about things that you don't understand how that could be disparate concepts, and it makes weird inferences every time you ask it, then that's because you haven't read enough. So that is, there's some weird stop gates there as well, right? So if people stop reading because AI has read everything, then suddenly people can't instruct AI anymore, right?
You make a great point, right? I think our education has to be rethought a little bit, right? Because we are now encountering almost like, this very intelligent sort of colleagues and synthetic colleagues and synthetic classmates and so on, right? How do we know? We need to have more judgment ourselves. Are they saying the right things?
Yeah, exactly.
And how do we leverage them rather than beholden to whatever this AI agents are saying?
How do you think slightly bigger thoughts than they do, or how can you not bigger, but are you thinking on the same level as they are? You can't say now it's a PhD level, so now I don't have to be a PhD. Now you actually need to know what a good PhD is about, right? Because the fear is that either if not, then the AI we have now will be the best AI we will have, because we won't be able to criticize it in the future or know what good looks like, and then we can't order good, right? There's just some weird paradoxes in this, right, that I think is super interesting to sort of uncover as we go along, right?
Absolutely. I mean, code generation, I'm going back to that. If you don't know what good code looks like, if you just use AI generated code, you'll build very poor software. At least today, right?
Yes. That's the one thing you always have to say, right? Everyone says that, at least today, as of now, because we never know what's going to happen in the future, right?
we don't know, but and my guess is for a long time that will be the case. You need to know what good looks like, because otherwise what will happen is it will flip. Today, humans are teaching AI what good looks like, and AI is getting better. If at some point humans stop knowing what good looks like, then it may almost regress.
I think Christian Bæk-Nørhave on the podcast told me about some high school students where the teacher had written in white letters on the assignment paper, right, on a white background, that they should always include something about bananas in Argentina or something like that, right, on an assignment of whatever history subject in Europe, right? And then they just gave it to the chatbot, and the chatbot just wrote it, and the chatbot read everything in white, but they couldn't read it themselves. But they didn't criticize it; they just handed it over, right? AI is no excuse for no effort, right?
Yeah,
I think that's the key thing, right? But it can take away some of the boring, mundane stuff. I think that's interesting. I have one thing, Surojit, I need to ask you, and because I think I spoke with you about it also when we had a prep chat, right? And I'm thinking a lot about this. So I've spoken also about this on other episodes lately. But are we moving from a composable architecture back to a more unambiguous monolith, right? You said ambiguity is the worst thing for an agent, right? So are we moving from composable into what we could call, I've called compostable? Like I think Satya Nadella says compostable to some extent. He didn't call it that, but I think he should. I think it's a great concept. But but he said that, in the future we won't even have software. But you see also the opposite, like SAP and maybe also Salesforce going more like, okay, our agents need to know how to navigate our systems, meaning that we're definitely not going compostable. We're going more, this is the world the agent works in, right? For me, this is actually, like you said, understanding what a virtual agent is, right? What is a virtual agent? What is a semantically embedded agent that only works in a digital world? How will it navigate in a composable architecture, right? So, and you said as well, you're building on composable architectures for our customers, but are we moving towards less composable and more monolithic because we need to have things less ambiguous to get agents? I think that's a super big question right now.
Yeah. The way we have built our software is it's actually highly, highly composable. In fact, I think with AI agents, you need to make them composable, and I'll explain why. For us, the AI employees we built, and we call them AI employees because they are not single agent. Each one of them have tens of agents, right? Configured and structured. It's like an agent mesh, right? Each agent does something unique very, very well. Right? Okay, write a document or summarize a document or extract things, structure data from a document, apply some rules into something, talk to an application or take actions in an application and so forth. The reason to make it all composable is one, explainability and observability. You can figure out, okay, where it broke, right? It can explain, okay, this is how I did this job. To us, an AI employee is almost like a group of humans working together. It's mimicking what a group of humans would do, right?
Oh, but that makes sense on the agent level, but I'm talking about the application level that the agents are working in. So
right.
If companies have like 20 different applications for this process, right, then it's more difficult to work that because you have APIs between them, you have different ways, you have to interact with all of them instead of just having it in one system. That is also what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Look, I think in the interim, AI agents need to work across multiple applications. That's what we also do, hundreds of applications, thousands in fact. In the future, you may wonder, is it necessary for those applications to even exist? I'll say, look, all SaaS is dead and should not even exist. Right? Should a Salesforce even exist? I think ultimately it's just a database, and an agent can manipulate on the data.
And unstructured data lakes with agents on top.
Yeah. So I think the future will be simpler. It's not monolithic, right? You have data, different types of data, different structured data, and you have a layer of agents, what we call a system of intelligence and actions on top of all your data, and that ephemerally manifesting pixels and creating the right UI in front of you for interacting with it. And that UI could be a voice, could be chat, but not limited to that. It could also be like a multi-step wizard or a table or whatever form. But it won't be fixed like it is today. It will be dynamic. A lot of our AI agents already generate dynamic UI like that.
Yeah, but the UI, okay, so let's say, okay, we strip away the UI, but the process will still have to be somehow defined, right? Like you also said, there are 3 layers, right? We start off with assisting human assisting us, and then we go autonomous. So this definition is not something we take out, right? But what you're saying sounds like we're not just taking the UI away, but we're taking the definition away. And that's why I'm thinking, the monolith comes in a different way, in a different reincarnation, sort of, right? That you sort of have the monolith in the semantic, knowledge graph layer of what's actually going on. How is this process not ambiguous, right? So we can spin up like auto agents instead of having defined agents for specific. To get where I'm going at, I know I'm getting on a limb here, right? But strip away the UX, I get that. I can eat that, but I don't eat necessarily going away from defined processing.
Yeah. I have a different view though. I think the way humans think, we think in steps, we think in structure. So let's say we want to build a brand new system today. Let's say we don't buy a HR system like Workday or something. We have hundreds of employees. How do we manage them, right? What will we do? We'll define the sets of things that employees need to do. Onboarding will require 5 steps, and then after they're onboarded, that's what they will need to do, and so on. I think if the future is this, right? This is where you are asking, what is the value add for humans? The value add for humans is really thinking about much more deeply, without constraint. Today, we are constrained by the tools we have. Workday can do this, or Salesforce can do this, so we have to do it this way. No. My sales process is completely different, right? And today, there is this friction. You have a business process and the tool. There's a lot of distance, so you have to call consultants and system integrators to make your process fit into the tool. The future will be the tool morphs into the process or the workflow that you have in your mind, right? For example, we often talk about this. Performance management is such a beast in every company, because every company does it slightly differently in a unique way and so on, right? And there is often no tool that sort of satisfies your need. So you kind of force fit it. The future will be, hey, here is my how I want to do performance management for my business. And it's unique, it's different, right?
So it morphs into it, yeah. I like that way you put it.
And here, and then, AI agents, it won't be like one single agent doing all the performance management or all of the steps. Okay, it requires multiple agents doing different things, but you can compose a new application ephemerally, very quickly. By the way, that's exactly what we are doing. Our AI employees is basically a new application built with composable kind of elements, with multiple agents, tens of agents come together and dynamically building a new application.
And also dynamically building agents. Is it an auto agent setup?
So the higher order, our lingo is, we call it an AI employee, which is the conglomeration of agents. But that is, if you call that an agent, yes, we are dynamically creating new agents, right?
But doesn't that also require you to know? I remember Søren from Microsoft Business Central on the podcast. He said that I don't know if he said it on the episode or on another chat I had with him, but that it has to know. For instance, there might be different currency tables, but it has to know which one is the right one to pick. So the ambiguity in the data. So to do that, to have these auto agents or the Ema employees or AI employees, you need to always define which one is the right currency table. You need to have this. And that's what I call an reincarnation of the monolith, right? Because suddenly you're not updating UIs, but you're heavy UIs, but you're updating master data, connections, logics. That has to be set in stone, right? For an agent to work it without a loss.
Yeah. Maybe it's a definitional thing. Look, I think the entire enterprise stack will need to be rethought. Today, it's
definitely
a lot of silos. Every application has its own data, and maybe that's what you are talking about, and it's a separate country, right?
Yeah, but back in the 90s, the monoliths, one of the things they had going for them was that everyone shared the same database.
Exactly.
So that's why I'm saying that the monoliths were good at that, having low ambiguity, but very heavy maintenance and very heavy change management, right?
Yep.
But if we want to go to something that, again, has low ambiguity, because agents need that, aren't we then going back to the monolith? That's my key question. I think that's exactly what I'm asking about.
Yeah. I think that the data will need to come together. Look, even today, you ultimately go and create a monolith. You go to Databricks or you go to Snowflake and put all the data into a data warehouse.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Because your data you took the same data, fragmented everywhere, and you found out, they are fragmented. I can't make high-level decisions. I need to bring
the composable IT architecture. And then
I need
exactly.
to do this. That's what Snowflake is doing, right?
Yes.
So, I'm like,
So all the benefits
why
of
did you
your
do it in the first place?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So you start with all data in one place. Now, when you say monolith, sometimes maybe this was the mental dissonance a little bit. I was thinking the processing and data both isolated. I think what will happen is data is in databases, and you are right, they will get consolidated.
That's
But
because
the
I think
processing,
processes. I think a little bit autistic. That processes are always just data transactions, right? So I combine it naturally in my own mind.
exactly. See, the big challenge, why, if you think about why did SaaS or come about, or why did these applications come about? Because it was very difficult to operate on this massive data, right? Because you had to write very complex SQL and so on and so forth. So it was much better to say, hey, here is the silo. This is just HR. Here are the 3 screens for HR. Here are the 3 screens for sales and so forth. Now what will happen is, because creating those 3 screens are so easy now, right? In fact, it'll be dynamic. That's what I'm trying to say. The agents, you don't even need fixed UI anymore. The agents will render what you need, operating on all this data. So the next layer actually will be a lot more composable. The data layer is consolidated, but the processing layer is a lot more composable. So
but
you
the data
can
layer
feed
is
this
much more
data to-
consolidated. The data layer is more set in stone,
More-
right? Because it's cross process. The problem with the composable, you have these 3 screens, you have these 3 screens, is that nothing connects across the entire process. Agents need to do that, and that's why you need to have the data layer unambiguous in the bottom, right? So we're just moving it somewhere. It says, I think that's interesting.
Okay.
I think that's super interesting.
If any company that has done this data transformation, which is they have multiple databases or applications and they use a data warehouse, the first problem they encounter, guess what? Is so much duplication of the data. The finance team has the same data as the sales team, the customer names, but they don't, only 90% match, 10% don't match, and there is, right? Because they got.
But I also say that if you don't have these problems, then you're probably dead, because that's because you get new customers, right? That's why you're always messing up the data as well. So there's something about this that also in nature, right? That it's master data problems is a sign of growth, right, Surojit? Or can you see that in your startup as well?
I mean, sure. Look, everything happens in kind of cycles in technology. You start with massive supercomputers and monoliths and so on. Then you distribute it all over, right? And then, personal computers and workstations on everybody's desk and so forth. And then you realize, actually, it's very hard for every company to manage their own data and their own processing. So you then go to cloud.
Yeah.
You can think of cloud as a monolith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point.
Right? I don't know. Yes, they have millions of servers, but to me, it's a monolith, right? Looking from outside, because it's a black box. All my data is with GCP or Azure. It could be in one big database or hundreds of federated databases. There could be one server or millions of servers. I don't care.
That's a great point, Surojit. I think that's a brilliant perspective. I think there's also the industry cloud thing and all those the trends there as well, right? Same thing, right? Let's try to remove the ambiguity of how different companies have been doing, and maybe we can share our processing so we do it the same way as well, right? But I want to ask you a little bit more, on Ema as well, because I think it's interesting that you've grown a startup in this space, right? An AI startup, and made a mark, because you're well renowned, right? Also in the market for being one of the better, AI agent platforms right now. So, and I think that's interesting because there's so many doing that, right? So what has set you apart, and how has it been to build in this market where things move all the time? Do you get the same kind of stress I get whenever there's a new model coming out, being like, oh, maybe I'm getting disrupted now? Do you feel that?
On the model question, tactically, we solved that problem up front. Because we took a model agnostic approach. We created our own model called Ema Fusion, that is actually a mixture of experts model, but it mixes public models, open source and closed source both. We have a research paper out there, if you take a look. But we have proven we can give higher accuracy for enterprise tasks than GPT-4o or anything else out there at a much lower cost. 1/20th the cost, but higher accuracy. Anyway, so that doesn't stress me. In fact, it's a benefit of our product that our customers don't need to worry about new models coming in. They know they will get the benefit of the new model at the right place for the right task automatically. They don't need to worry. But in general, what you are saying, just broadening what the question a little bit,
That's what I want you to.
a lot of noise. Every day something is coming out, someone is claiming something. And here is how I think, I don't, the essential quality, I think, for entrepreneurs have to be how you black out the noise a little bit, right? Of course, you need to be aware, you cannot be under the rock, and you need to read everything, but you need to really black out the noise and have conviction on your strategy. When we were starting 2 years back, I heard so much advice. Oh, why are you building it horizontally? Oh, why are you not building another model? Look, there is another company. I'll Adapt.ai, building a model for taking actions, because our value prop was we are going to enable the AI agents, or what do you call AI employees even back then, to take actions, not just say the next word like LLMs would do. You should build an action transformer model like other people are doing and raise like $500 million and build a model. We thought that's not the right way. We thought the existing LLMs and what we came up with Ema Fusion was the right way, and we could build the agentic infrastructure on top rather than.
But then, MCP comes out and does some of the things that you already did, right? Exactly. And all that. So I'm just saying the noise is also,
so how do you black out the noise and have conviction in what you are doing? I mean, and MCP to us is great because it's a protocol that allows us to take those actions even faster, even better. Because we have done really hard work to work inside every tool and call inside APIs and so on. Eventually, every application will probably have their MCP server that anybody can call into. So it just makes our job actually easier and better. That's the key, is having conviction and working on it.
But now you're saying it in a euphemistic way, because it also means that some of the things that you were good at, you built something custom, right, to connect to all these things, and suddenly everyone has it with an MCP, right? That must also be that I'm just saying that there's some things that you burn along the way, right?
Well, not.
Or I've called it, I've said, everyone becomes technical debt. There's something that's created all the time, because then suddenly something comes out and you build it on the other way, right? And then suddenly, whatever, right? You get my point.
I do, but the other thing I'll say is there is a lot of distance between a tweet and actual product. There's no MCP. There's nothing real yet.
No.
It's a protocol. Few customers have, few applications have implemented it. What's interesting is whatever we have done, we can MCP, MCPify it very quickly. So we are actually much farther ahead than anybody else, because
you understand what it takes to get to production. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, right? We can put a layer of we can make it MCP compliant very, very easily, because at the bottommost layer there is no magic. There is an application. It has some APIs. You have to call those APIs. How will you talk to the application? There is no other way. You're not going to inspect the binary and do some injection into the binary. You are going to call the APIs. So what MCP is doing is a standard layer of software on top of it, right?
Yeah.
To interface with LLMs, but on the back end, you still have to do the hard work. We have done a lot of the hard work, so we have to just, it's much easier for us. So
focusing on the value, basically, and how do you get it in to produce value, right?
I mean, you have a couple of points there. One is having the right technology strategy is important, right? And a strategy that actually, and I think Sam Altman said this some time back, that leverages what's happening around you rather than competes with it. Very important.
Yeah, being super agnostic as well, right? So
for us, we get better every time a new model comes in. So it's accretive, not threatening. We get better if there is better connectivity between applications come in, we get better if there is like agent-to-agent protocol come in. In fact, we are participant with Google on defining A2A protocol.
Nice.
It's
Of course,
actually,
with your background as well, right?
yeah, it's actually beneficial to us. And that's how I think about always is, where will the technology be in 5 or 10 years? Who are the big players and what will they do? And how do I leverage that? Not necessarily compete with everything. Of course, there will be competition. There will be other folks who will compete, who we'll compete with. But in general, I want to bet on kind of secular trends in technology, not bet against them.
Exactly, bet with the trends, yeah.
Yeah, secular trends in technology. And look, I have done, say, mobile before. That the big thing I did at Google was kind of really enable Google or make Google ready for mobile. And I started working on mobile ads before smartphones came in and helped Google get to
So you've been in this noise before.
I've been in this noise before, and I think betting on the secular trends is so important, right? For example, the cost of compute is going to exponentially go down. Like you can see that, like GPD charge for a token, 2 years back versus now, exponentially lower. So you don't want to necessarily work on that problem.
No.
Because it will automatically get solved by someone. The models will get better. So yes, you can kind of fill in the gaps a little bit today, but unless you want to compete and build another model that's better than everybody else, you want to believe that models will get better, right? So how do I now build applications on top of that? It's like, back in the days, in mobile days, yeah, the phones were not very capable.
Expect things to get better, all the time.
But you bet that it will get better. So you start building applications that will eventually run even better on those phones. Right?
I think, Surojit, this also, we're getting close to a conclusion to the episode. I think my time with you is running out. I've spent a lot of it, but I still have my final question. And I think that what you're saying right now and how we're getting into how you've, moved on the edge of technology and with a lot of noise and different roles means that I'm really looking forward to your answer to this question, which is, the key question for the podcast. So are you ready for that one, Surojit?
Yes, absolutely.
So, Surojit, what is the only constant?
Yeah, to me, look, the only constant is the being a founder and being, having been at the frontier of multiple tech revolutions, mobile, and then crypto, and now AI. You have to have very strong belief in your hypothesis. You have to have strong conviction to build anything sustainable. Of course, you are going to adapt as the context changes, but the North Star needs to be very clear in front of you.
So the only constant is to adapt, but also to be constant in what you want to achieve.
Absolutely. I think it's if you are just changing what you do on a daily basis based on a tweet you see or an article that somebody publishes, that's a problem, right? Yes, there may be some tectonic shifts happening, and that may make you change something. I'm not against pivoting or against changing stuff, but I think overall, you got to have conviction, particularly when things around you are shifting so fast. You have got to have a conviction and clear hypothesis on where things will be 5 or 10 years from now, because building something sustainable takes a long time. Thanks a lot, and likewise. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend or a colleague.